My very first book, my very first fiction book, I wrote while I was at Dallas Seminary. This was just 3 or 4 years later, and I had the idea of taking some material that I wanted to put into book form, and God gave me the idea of putting it into a brief story of Jesus having dinner in a nice Italian restaurant one night in Cincinnati with a modern day skeptic, agnostic, who was just struggling with things in his life, as we all do. And so I ended up writing this book that I called Dinner with a Perfect Stranger. And so it's basically the premise is, what would you want to talk to Jesus about if you had him to yourself for 2 hours? If you were a agnostic skeptic. And so my goal was, I always kind of considered myself to be the world's worst evangelist, but I was a good writer. And so I just thought, well, I'll just take what I would want to, sit down and tell somebody. I'll just take and put that into a conversation between Jesus and this skeptic. And my goal really was just to have something on hand that I could give to people, family, friends, people I met, whatever, that would present the gospel in a very biblical way, and at the same time, hopefully be engaging and entertaining, and something that once they opened and started reading the first couple of pages, they would want to go straight through and read the whole thing, because it's short. It's only 100 pages. So I didn't really have any goals for the book beyond that, but I did have a contact at Random House and the large publisher, and so I sent them a copy and said, hey, I self-published this book if you're interested in looking at it. Well, they wanted to, they got back with me and said, we want to publish your book. So I said, great. So we signed a contract. Well, they ended up selling 500,000 copies of it. And an independent film producer in Louisville calls me up and says, hey, I want to make a movie of your book. And so I say, great. So he makes a movie of the book, and it ends up being seen by millions of people on TBN, which has aired it many times. And then I write 2 sequels. Random House publishes the sequels. He makes 2 more movies. And so the whole thing just ended up basically putting the gospel in front of literally millions of people between the book and the books and the movies. And here is this, quote, world's worst evangelist being used by God to spread the gospel in this way.